Yo, 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 hello everybody! Welcome to the stream. Here we go. It is I. We are playing Linchpin on Tipping Point. I think I got the map more or less properly made. And as always, it is time for the roll-off. We got a yellow and a white. Marble is white, gold is yellow. Let's roll off. Who is the defender? Marble wins. And Marble is the Marble is the attacker, so gold is the defender. Might as well roll to see who goes first. And Marble goes first. I guess gold will be this side. In Norway, you may hear tales of the Pesta, a decrepit witch that was the personification of the Black Plague itself. She is described as a dusty old hag dressed in so gold, marble. Gold will make first unit, marble will play first. Plague is always traveling, either on foot, wood, or even flying, with no true destination, but only with the intention of spreading desolation and despair. So we are talking Linchpin. Let's check out what is Linchpin. New game. What is Linchpin as primary objective? Remember this: if you see a rake, a few are left in her wake. If you see a broom, you're all fucked. Unfortunately, since she is the representation of the plague, there is no way to truly defeat her. Your best bet is to maintain your distance from others and practice good hygiene. Either that, or you can give her a quick spray. True victory is based on a firm foundation. If you cannot hold the center, then all else will crumble swiftly. Standard 5 objective setup. 1 in each deployment zone, 3 no man's land, including the center objective. Victory points. End of your command phase or end of your turn. It is the 5th battle round and you are going second. Starting from battle round 2 onwards. If you control your home objective, the one in your own deployment zone, you score 5 EP for every other objective. Mass arson? I have to point. Even if you're innocent and all that, what's concerning is that the doppelganger can actually start to influence your own decisions by planting evil thoughts in your head. Maximum VP per turn if you hold all 4. You do not control your own objective. You score only 3 VP for each objective marker you control anywhere on the table. Holding your own objective is Linchpin. It upgrades all the other objectives from 3 VP to 5 VP. But if you do have to prove your innocence when side by side with your copy, there's a couple features. Losing home objective collapses your primary scoring dramatically. There is no cap on how many objectives you can score in one turn. The mission heavily rewards controlling the center while never abandoning your home. If we were going well-versed in American history, the Negro the story firmly allowed President Abraham Lincoln's big night out on the town in 1855. Even if you're familiar with the historical arc, so mission is clear. Let us get our secondaries. Of course, the guy using Lincoln's skull as target practice is John Wilkes Booth. But also accompanying the president that night were his wife, Mary, close friend and Union Army Major Henry R. Rathbone, and his fiancée, Claire Harris. Lincoln and the gang were out celebrating the recent Union victory of the American Civil War and were seated in a private viewing box to the right of the stage in Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. Okay, I need missions, overwhelming force, cleanse, secure no man's land, and sabotage. And took aim, blasting the president point blank in the head with a 44 caliber lead ball from a single-shot amateur pistol. At the sound of the gunshot, Rathbone spun around to see Lincoln collapse in his chair with Booth standing with top smoke. He immediately leapt from his seat and charged the assassin, but Booth came well prepared. In the struggle, Booth was able to equip a dagger to severely slash Rathbone's arm before leaping from the box onto the stage. Right before jumping, Rathbone was able to grab Booth's coat, causing Booth to lose his balance and eat shit, punching up his leg in the process. Despite being an attacked hero of witnesses and bystanders, Booth evaded capture for 12 days. However, his plan was successful as President Lincoln died from injuries just 9 hours after the fatal gang attack. Rathbone, who passed out with the blood loss, overwhelming force. Any battle round, when this card is active, each time an enemy unit that started turn within range of an objective marker is destroyed, 3 VP, up to a maximum 5 VP per turn. Rathbone's now wife Clara had hoped that the change of scenery would do him some good. Rathbone's mental health continued to spike. Leader and bodyguard units count separate for scoring this secondary mission. Not an ideal one to get first turn for Marvel. Hello everybody, welcome. Let's play Warhammer. Yo Jed, what's up? Secondary mission is cleanse, shooting phase. One or more units of your army within range and objective marker that is not in your deployment zone. End of the turn. If the unit is performing this action are still within range of the same objective marker and you control that objective marker. So that completes it. So we have to control an objective marker by the end of shooting phase. How you doing, Jed? Thanks for coming. Appreciate it. Gold has secured no man's land, so 2 VPs for no man's land, 2 or more markers in no man's land is 5 VPs. Sabotage action on the shooting phase. One unit wholly within a terrain feature and not in your deployment zone. And of your opponent's next turn or end of battle, if the unit is still on the battlefield, score 3 or 6 if it is within opponent's deployment zone. Not ideal. Not ideal. But doable. But It was in this hotel that Holmes would allegedly trapped and tortured his victim, eventually selling their bodies to the local medical school as a way to satisfy his desires. It is possibly quite easy to get 3 VPs, not 6. So we'll kind of worry about that. We still have to obviously deploy. So he kind of should have gotten the deployment done before, but it will be no problem. They refused to pay out and accused Holmes of setting the fire himself and engaging in insurance fraud. Holmes, obviously angered by such accusations, he skedaddled out of Chicago. And over the following years, he continued to dabble in insurance fraud with his friend Benjamin Casey. For his next trick, Holmes had suffocated Feitzel with chloroform and burned his unconscious body for a life insurance payment. What's even worse is that through extreme coercion and manipulation, Holmes convinced Feitzel. So we're gonna make I think an intelligent move. We're gonna start our Alaris in the home objective. We can, of course, at the right time, he was sentenced to death and hanged in 1896, never for confessing to over 200 murders thanks to his murder case. But Holmes was regarded as a habitual liar, and it was believed that there was only enough evidence to link him to 9 murders. Still on account, but not nearly as to 100 different things. As for the murder castle, it is confirmed that these stories about the design and use of the building were highly sensationalized and over-exaggerated by local media.
Finally,
That's a good story now. Take a look at this face. Familiar with them? If not, then you're useless in the five-star joker. Anyway, this is a death mask. A plaster casting of the face of an unidentified woman whose chloroform was said in Paris in the late 1880s. She became known as the Nuit de la Seine, or the unknown woman of the Seine. After being fished out of the French River, the body was placed in the Paris floor with, at the time, put dangerous corpses on full display for the sake of identification of the general public. Yo, Dylan, thanks for checking out the stream. We are playing Warhammer. We have deployed our Alaris over here. It is time, in fact, for Marvel to go ahead and deploy. With her age being estimated at just 16 years old. But it was her calm, serene expression that helped the attention of the chronicles of the world. Since he couldn't take a picture to make it last longer, he decided to instead cast a plaster death mask on her face as a way to immortalize her. Creepily enough, but also to no surprise, many Parisians thought that having a face of a dead woman on the mask gave a plus to the slice by death. The goodness opposite of the death mask is made. From an artistic standpoint, many interpretations like the young woman's demeanor consistent on fear over death, being something of its inevitability rather than fear. From a non-artistic viewpoint, there's some dead girl's face hanging in the wall. Over the years, her face had inspired several literary works, over any fashion. What have you seen in her life? And believe it or not, chances are you actually unknowingly given her. As hers, the face of the sepia training doll, which is used in almost all sepia training courses live lives since 1960. That might be creepy, but this is thematically appropriate. World War I was absolutely brutal. It was the forefront of many new innovations in warfare like tanks, heavy machine guns, and manned aircraft. All effective technologies developed for the sake of boosting your own kill count, but another, more sinister tactic was soon deployed onto the battlefield: chemical weapons. Perhaps the most widely used is mustard gas. Others were used too. For instance, chlorine gas, a yellow-green gas which sure enough looks like a stereotypical fatal bar cloud, but packs a punch. This story begins in September of 1914, where German soldiers were tasked with taking the Russian-occupied Custodes fortress. It was constructed as a Russian Empire-bordered defensive structure against German attack. And boy, was it good at its job. German Empire units had repeatedly tried to penetrate the fortress, but were told no through heavy retaliatory gunfire and artillery. Despite facing multiple defeats, stubborn German soldiers refused to give up so easily. Three assaults were conducted on the fortress over the course of a year. The first saw German infantry losses of about 6,000, while Russian forces only suffered 139. The second assault
So yes,
bombardment on the fortress by German artillery. Russian soldiers didn't budge.
we are gonna deploy right here.
However, the third assault was to be the fortress down. Returning to the fortress in August of 1915, the German forces now had fresh soldiers, even heavier artillery, and multiple canisters of chlorine gas. On the defensive side, the Russian line was only 900 strong, but they still took their chances against the impossible odds. After waiting several hours for favorable wind conditions, German soldiers bombarded the fortress with a deadly gas to flush out the enemy. The Russian soldiers, unfortunately,
Gold in
faces just fast and quickly. Rags, so fits. To no surprise, this proved ineffective. Soldiers were severely incapacitated by the gas, and they smelled like this. As a quick science lesson, when chlorine gas is inhaled, it reacts with the residual moisture of your body to make hydrochloric acid, which starts to corrode your internal organs. In short, it causes big ouchies on the inside. With this mechanism of action being well known, the Germans were certain of their victory and began to infiltrate the fortress. They were met with a horrific sight. Despite suffering in complete agony, covered in blisters and wounds and blood, the Russian soldiers still stood their ground and continued fighting. The German troops, of course, shied their hosen at the sight of the seemingly undead Russians and fled from the fortress in a complete panic, with some even stumbling into barbed wire in the process. The rest of the German troops immediately hightailed it out of there. Although successful, most of the Russian defense died from the flames. Those who did survive barely got by the skin of their whatever they had left. Sadly, Russian troops preemptively demolished most of the fortress as Germans began closing in for a fourth time. Just as a quick point, I'm going to be showing some graphic syphilis patients. You don't want to see that, look away now. Usually when you hear the phrase Italian Renaissance, you think of high-class society, revolutionary innovation, and lots of statues of dudes with big dicks out. Well, allow me to throw a wrench in that perception by introducing you to the concept of syphilis science. Syphilis, like the guy with the boulder? No, silly. Syphilis, like the STD. Quick backstory. In 1394, the King of Naples, Ferdinand I, died of butthole cancer. If his name sounds familiar, it's because he's one of those evil kings that I covered in a previous video, so you can check that out if you haven't. Wink. Anyway, Ferdy's son,
wink.
the second, took his dad's
Very well.
check by French guy Charles VIII, who claimed that he had played with because his noble ancient bloodline. So he claimed. Little Alfonso was like, how about you just take the lawn instead? Your lawn? No, hold on. Well, why would I want your lawn? You serious? After some clarification, King Charles agreed, and with 30,000 soldiers invaded Italy, took over Milan, but it's sweet. It was in its way too. Naples was also taken. With such a successful campaign for the peninsula, the French army, which consisted of Spanish, Swiss, Finnish, and even Italian soldiers, decided to celebrate. And you bet your sweet balls that meant women and alcohol involved in medical money basketball. Quantities. When you have a bunch of people from all over Europe quite literally come together in one city, there's going to be some interesting results. This one was syphilis.
Interesting. Hello everybody, thanks for joining. Hey H4, Chad and Jack, really appreciate you all checking out the stream. Thank you.
Step is finishing up your very consensual physical time slot with a local life. During your bi-weekly wash, you notice something around your weakness. You have genital ulcers. Smaller but wounds forming around the cheek. The bad worry is quickly put to rest and develop a bad fever.
How's it going, everybody?
Get used to that because it will be like that for a few months. As you continue to live your now much more miserable life, we discover the formation of big, stinky, painful sores and abscesses across your body. These sores start to penetrate deeper and deeper into your tissue until the flesh quite literally wants to go. The bacteria eats away your skin, your eyes, your nose, and your lips. You don't die just yet, but you wish you would. For months or even years, piece by piece, you fall apart. with chunks of your body just sliding right off. You would buy more. Thousands of people were walking around like this day in and day out. Eventually, the soldiers were expelled from Italy and returned to their respective homes. Within a few years, syphilis ran rampant through most of Europe, and by 1520, the so-called French disease infected Africa and Asia as well. Evil human experiments, again. What's up, you desensitized degenerates?
Hello, actually at this point I don't need it or want it anymore. That's why it took me quite a bit to actually notice that it wasn't delivered. So if you could just refund to my card, it would be very appreciated.
83% of children's teeth had cavities, which, believe it or not, wasn't exactly unusual, as dental care was complete garbage. So the Swedish government decided it was time to get more enamored with enamel. Of course, right off the bat, the first to be blamed were the candy companies, but they were all, nah, that couldn't be us. Right, guys?
So,
in reality, there just wasn't enough scientific evidence to put the blame on anyone in particular. So in order to bridge that little gap of knowledge, the medical board decided to commission the Halex study, which sought to determine a relationship between tooth decay and sugar-heavy diets. All they needed were some volunteers.
we are gonna put our blade champion
Unless you're an actual child with some backups pre-programmed into your skull
on the board.
Yeah, no. And walk away. That guy asking me if I was...
So we'll be around.
What's a committee got to do to get some willing test subjects? Easy. Simply just... There we go. In 1945, with funding from both the Swedish government and the candy companies, the medical board began performing government-sanctioned trials on patients in the Vittulsholm Institution outside of Lund, Sweden. The establishment just so happened to have patients with severe intellectual and developmental disabilities. So, in the medical board's eyes, perfect cannon fodder for the study. Between 1945 and 1947, 660 patients were given vitamins and fluoride tablets in conjunction with a low-starch meal and no snacking. After the 2-year period, 72% of these patients had not developed any additional cavities in their body. Right? So, vitamins and fluoride are that. Well, in 1947, the medical board swapped the vitamins and fluoride with sugar-heavy diets, which included sugary snacks, drinks, and a specially formulated tacky toffee designed to aggressively stick to teeth. By the end of the study in 1949, about 10% of patients had irreversible damage to their teeth. They were pretty much rotten to the root, being deeply pitted with cavities, which caused agonizing pain.
Lovely, lovely. How you guys doing?
With these results showing a clear link between sugar and tooth decay, the candy overlords weren't exactly pleased, so the scumbags decided to actually withhold the results, publishing them 4 years after the experiment had concluded, resulting in public outcry. Now, of course, people were more pissed at the results rather than the method, which was just brushed off as a necessary evil, since the research ultimately did very much benefit society as a whole. Back then, the severely intellectually disabled were seen as merely subhuman, with their forced participation being considered their payment to the society that took responsibility for them. It wouldn't be until the 1990s that the ethics of the study were being questioned. Really messed up. So, remember to brush your teeth. The monster study. Not a study about a monster, but arguably a study designed by a monster. This guy, Wendell Johnson. He was an American psychologist at the University of Iowa in Iowa. The overall goal of the study was to determine if a child's severe stutter could be cured through positive reinforcement and encouragement. Well, that doesn't seem too bad. Oh wait, no, the study also wanted to see if the stutter could be created from being verbally accused. That changes things completely. Those chosen for the study were, of course, innocent, wide-eyed, adorable orphans, which apparently are always in great supply for such a situation. 22 orphans, ages 5 to 15, were ultimately chosen, being divided into groups based on speech ability. 10 of the children were considered stutterers, and 12 children had no stutter at all. The study aimed to see how both positive and negative influences affected the presence of stutter. So, to cover all of the grounds, the study looked like this. The children were divided into 4 groups. Group 1A, 6 non-stuttering children being told, "Good job, being such good speakers." Group 2A, 6 non-stuttering children being told that they were beginning to develop a stutter, which they weren't, and told to get their shit together. Group 1B consisted of 5 stuttering children that were told that their stutters were nothing but a phase and that they'll eventually get over it. And finally, Group 2B, 5 stuttering children who were constantly reprimanded for their inability to speak well. It's noted that only Groups 2A and 1B were seen as interesting and critical to the research as it would directly challenge the overall theory. Can you cure a stutter? Can you force a stutter? The experiments, though designed by Wendell Johnson, were conducted by University of Iowa graduate student Mary Tudor. Not this Mary Tudor, the psychopathic Queen of England, this Mary Tudor. The executed the study following only an approved script written by Johnson. Each week, she would talk with the children and document their progress. Group 1B stutterers were told that they would, quote, outgrow the stuttering and they would be able to speak much better than they are speaking now. Pretty wholesome. 10 out of 10. On the other side of the spectrum, Group 2A's non-stutterers were basically snacked upside their skulls, being told that their teachers complained about their speech problems and that they must immediately be corrected by, quote, doing anything to keep from stuttering. Don't ever speak unless they can do it right. The orphanage teachers were also in on the game, being given specific instructions to reinforce these ideas to the students as part of the early encompassing scientific study, which lasted 5 months. The demeanor of Group 2A's children changed almost immediately. Once considered normal speaking with little to no issues, these children were now terrified. They became withdrawn and hesitant, and some only really spoke with 1 or 2 word responses. Like a bad date. So, how was your day? Good. Okay, how's your chicken farm? Good. Is your phone good too? Good. Okay, this. Good. The children would even go as far as to punish themselves for any mistakes they made and would even isolate themselves from the other children. One 12-year-old girl even ended up running away from the orphanage completely. In the end, no child from Group 2A actually developed a stutter, but the psychological damage had still been done, with the children's communication skills being thrown into the toilet, which reportedly continued throughout their entire life. They couldn't even tell their parents how much they loved them. As for the other groups, there was
What? No.
and their speech.
I'm just distracted with the wrong Trajan.
No, but you can cause long-term psychological stress by degrading and verbally abusing children. What a surprise. Okay, easy time's over. I'm going to crank up the evil. The Holmesville prison in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in the United States, was home to some early master human experiments from 1951 all the way to 1974. Post-World War II, all hats were off for the sake of scientific advancement. Pharmaceutical industry budgets had skyrocketed, and a new gold rush was created. Ethics were glossed over, informed consent was virtually non-existent, and medical safety protocols were shoved aside for the sake of progress. Medical doctors were kind of just told to try some stuff out and see what sticks. After all, you don't want those evil Soviets to get ahead of the Cold War, do you? Now, some of you more savvy historians might ask, well, what about the Nuremberg Code of 1947, which outright banned such human experiments? Well, American scientists waved their freedom fingers and said, no, see, that code was for the gross bad Nazi guys over there. We Americans would never do something like that. No. Anyway, here, try this new pill. It might cure cancer, it might make you smell colors. We haven't perfected it yet, but trust us, it'll do something. Experiments performed in the Holmesville prison ranged from applying simple cosmetics to make everyone look pretty, to exposure to corrosive and carcinogenic chemical weapons to make everyone look pretty dead. These experiments were funded by several large corporations, including Johnson & Johnson, the Dow Chemical Company, and even the U.S. Army. Some people had rainy day funds, mega corporations that So it has to be said that these experiments were entirely voluntary, with prisoners being paid a few bucks here and there for their time and thoughts. But when an individual is so desperate for money as to sell themselves to inhumane trials, is it really voluntary? Yeah, Here's your $2. Same time tomorrow. One of the head honchos over there was American dermatologist Dr. Albert Klickman. When he entered the Holmesburg prison for the first time, he was quoted saying that all he saw before him were acres of skin. It was like a farmer seeing a fertile field for the first time. So that right there, that's an obvious red flag. That's not a normal thought that you should have. Inmate records describe experiments including exposure to various STDs, skin blistering chemicals, radiation, psychoactive drugs, and carcinogenic.
Perfect. Took us a bit, but you know, we're here to learn.
Known to have directly killed over 700,000 American and Vietnamese people during the Vietnam War. But that's another story.
Not that anyone would care.
So, prisoners were poked, battered, slit, blown, exposed, drugged, you name it. But this wasn't just happening in Holmesburg. Inmates, along with other throwaway humans, like those in mental hospitals all over the United States, were nothing but lab rats to the medical community. That's all the value they had left as humans. At least, that was the general consensus at the time. Prisoners would line up day in and day out to see what the new test of the day was and how much free cash they could get out of it. Yeah, I heard they'll slag your balls for $5. Oh, neat. I'm usually the one paying for that. One prisoner by the name of Willard Ponton noted how he was laid on the table where two doctors cut open his lower back. They proceeded to stuff him with medical gauze and sew him back up, only to remove the gauze 10 days later with no idea what they were really doing it. But he got $10 out of it for each cut. So worth it. When the 1970s rolled around, it was estimated that over 90% of the prison's population.
So first you do deployment, and only then you go to the first command phase where you win CPs and you draw your secondaries, correct?
Although many great scientific advancements were achieved through these experiments, it left the subjects scarred for life, both physically
Correct.
and mentally. Let me ask you this. Would you trust that a medicine would work in theory on paper, or would you rather have it be proven to work by shoving weird pills into real human subjects? There's medical research, and then there's just plain evil torture. Since you're watching a video about evil experiments, you've probably heard of Joseph Mengele, also known as the Angel of Death, arguably one of the most evil men in human history. Sure, Adolf the Red-Nosed Dickhead was a big stinky cheese of the whole Nazi operation, but remember the thing where monsters like willingly and enthusiastically carried out his orders. Mengele was one of such monsters. He was a World War II German SS officer in position at Birkenau, a part of the Auschwitz death camp in Poland. Since SS doctors didn't administer any treatment to sick and dying prisoners themselves, Mengele's job was to make sure that the inmates in the group were treating the prisoners.
Give me engage on all fronts, secure no man's land, marked for death, and storm hostile objective.
That's just a taste of this complete bastard's inconceivable evil. Mengele would use his position of power as an opportunity to satisfy his demented curiosity. After all, he was a medical doctor. Among his greatest interests were people with heterochromia iridium, meaning that they had two different kinds of person before. However, people with dwarfism and other physical abnormalities had his strongest interest being identical twins. Mengele had handpicked over 1,500 subjects, mostly children, who would be spared the gas chamber and even fed and housed better than they would without manipulation. That terrible cause. An inmate doctor named Mengele was quoted saying that he was capable of being so kind to the children, to have them become fond of him, to bring them sugar, to think of small details in their daily lives, to do things he genuinely admired. And then, next to that, the crematorium smoke. And these children, tomorrow or in a half hour, he's going to send them there. Well, that is where the anomaly lay. Such a human so void of empathy is truly horrifying, because you just never know what they were really capable of and how far they will go to accomplish their own selfish goals. His experimental designs had zero consideration for the health, safety, or the physical, mental, or emotional impact on the victims. He was given full control to do as he pleased. For his twin patients, he often performed his experiments on one twin and treated the other as a control for a direct comparison of results. Experiments included the amputation of healthy limbs, forceful injection of disease, blood transfusions, removal of teeth and organs without anesthesia, even creating his own Siamese twins by sewing two children together. Perhaps one of his more infamous pieces of work was injecting a pollen
So,
directly into eye
engage on all fronts just means being on different quarters, any battle round, and until the end of my turn.
Once experiments were completed,
So, we do have possibility here to score a little bit.
out of his 1,500 victims, only 200 reportedly survived. Keep in mind that Megalo wasn't even the highest ranking medical.
Secure no man's land, you control objective marker in no man's land, you control 2 or more objective markers on no man's land, 5 VPs, and this is
Stabilization by radiation protection, contributing to the stabilization of over 400
the end of my turn, which is also interesting.
Research had researched the human limits and treatments of hypothermia and exposure to low and high pressure environments. Hans Eppinger had forced starving and dehydrated
I think it is a possibility that we can try to do.
had claimed to have developed a cure for homosexuality.
Gold gets marked for death. When drawn, your opponent must select 3 units from their army
Other medical officers,
on the battlefield or all remaining.
many of whom
These are alpha, and you select one to be beta.
like many other SS officers, fled to Argentina.
Not a good one.
So, he evaded capture and survived until 1979 when, while doing a backstroke in the ocean, suffered a front stroke in the ground, left to float on the ocean.
Equals select
Was.
the
There were
bikes
16,000 documented victims of human experimentation
to be beta.
with about a quarter
Of course, alpha are all, so gamma.
It is unknown what the true number of experiment victims could be.
Storm hostile objective, any battle round. Control 1 or more objectives that were controlled by your.
East Asia, the Krasu is a malevolent female spirit that will truly make you ground or bridge you something awful. It is described as the
Okay, so we are able to redraw
which isn't so bad until you
this one.
organs. A heart, some lungs, a stomach, a liver, intestines, and the rest. All just out in the open, ready to give you a sloppy slap at a moment's notice. The Krasu is believed to be the
Established locus.
young women who committed horrific atrocities such as infidelity or murder. During the day, a Krasu can walk among humans undetected, appearing as a normal woman, though looking extra super soupy. At night, the Krasu finds a secluded area to detach from her body and fly off into the darkness to feast. They are said to feed on the blood of animals like cows or roadkill, but have a strong appetite for the blood of children, or even better, pregnant women, since it's a 2-for-1 special. After feeding, the Krasu returns to
Give me established locus.
day. If you're not, it's pretty easy to protect yourself from them because they aren't exactly invincible. For one, the body that the Krasu leaves behind is what ties it to the world, so if you hide or otherwise destroy it, then the Krasu has nowhere to park its head, leaving it to die an agonizing death once the sun comes up. Another way to go about it is to target the Krasu itself, specifically its dangling intestines, since that's its weak point. If you put up some spiky fences or plants around, the spirit's floppy bits can get entangled, preventing it from being able to return to its body. Or, if you're a Deadeye, you can give them a cinematic send-off. If you ever cross paths with one of these bad boys, consider yourself boned. A Gashinokuro is an evil spirit from Japanese folklore that manifests itself as a skeleton. A 30-foot tall skeleton. It is said to be composed of hundreds of corpses of fallen, forgotten soldiers who have never received their last rites after dying on the battlefield. The residual anger and hatred towards the living fuels this giant rattling rascal to terrorize the countryside in the dead of night. Even though this fella is absolutely huge, the corpse can travel quite quietly and remain undetected. Any humans unlucky enough to cross its path will be.
Here we go. We're gonna go into the movement phase.
That is just natural selection. Unfortunately, it is said that the monster is too large or too powerful to defeat, and will only come to rest once it has released all of its manifested anger through sheer destruction. But I imagine if you were well equipped with a comically large hammer and took a good whack at an ankle, you can do some damage. The Naklab clave is a horse-like demon with origins tied to the Orkney Islands north of Scotland, and is considered to be one of the most evil and most feared spirits in the native folklore. This demonic spirit takes the form of a man mounted on and fused to a horse. Oh yeah, and it has no skin. The humanoid part of the monster possesses a huge head with an incredibly large mouth and a single red eye burning with a red flame. He also has long, ape-like arms that hang inside. Trust me, if I was actually good at drawing, this would be grade A nightmare fuel. Although the Naklavi is said to be a malevolent water spirit originating from the sea, it spends its time wandering the land, spreading plague and disease across crops, livestock, and humans. So anytime that there were problems with crops or natural disasters or anything like that, the Naklavi was to blame. So hungry. Oh, so goddamn Naklavi going down right down like boom. Fuck you, Naklavi! Being a being of pure, unfiltered evil, the Naklavi cannot be outright defeated. Though it is said that it can't cross bodies of fresh water, so like a creek or something and hop over it. Also, I mean, it has no skin, so pour some salt and lemon juice in it, that'll probably do the trick. Next, we take a vacation down to the Caribbean with the Sukuyo, an evil spirit, all these monsters are evil by the way, that disguises itself as a reclusive old woman during the day, but oh boy, once that sun sets, all hats are off. And so does the Sukuyo's skin. She tosses away her mortal flesh jacket and turns into a fireball, taking off into the night sky to stop the prey. Oh, you think you're safe indoors? No, see?
So with an advance, we can actually move.
She can even get in through your windows up. But what does a Sukuyo do? She may drink your blood or try to turn you.
18.
That's your way. There's no chance you can win. The Sukuyo might just end up wearing your skin. But a way to defeat her would serve you quite nice, so distract her using a handful of rice. Throw it on the ground, then turn and flee. For each grain, she must count carefully. Locate her old skin and cover it with salt. Now her evil deeds have come to a halt. If these rhymes gave you a good vibe, always remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Stemming from Central American folklore, the Siwanaba is an absolute babe. She's described as a stunningly attractive, long-haired woman. She is usually seen wearing thin, see-through clothing, which I guess I can't complain too much. You may find her alone at night around water sources such as a river or a lake, usually washing clothes or bathing. Well, being the big macho man you are, you're not going to let this opportunity pass you by, so you puff out your chest and make your move. Excuse me, babe, I couldn't help but notice you washing your clothes in a very secluded part of the river alone on this irregular night. Can I need assistance maybe? Damn, babe, I'm gonna never get this special equipment. There you go. Although the Siwanaba do be looking good from behind, it possesses a demonic horse face, which is a deal breaker to most men. Those unfortunate enough to cross its path are often driven mad by its shocking appearance or instantly die of fear when her face is revealed. But if you ever find yourself in the presence of what you think is a Siwanaba, you may banish it by making the sign of a cross with your fingers. If that doesn't work, she may not be a Siwanaba at all, in which case, just tell her you're not really all that interested.
How's it going, guys?
This one is the stuff of nightmares. Literal nightmares. An Alp is the OG sleep paralysis deal. They are
How much is 18 inches in millimeters?
And sit on your chest as you sleep. These little bastards just stay perched up on your sternum, restricting your breathing and not allowing you to move or wake up, causing terrifying nightmares. Talk about sleep apnea. Alpin apparently have the ability to shapeshift into multiple animals such as a cat, dog, a pig, or even a snake. So the next time you wake up with a cat on your face, it might just be a small demon. The way you can tell an elf apart from your pet is its stupid-looking head. This is called a tarn cat, which grants the demon powers, including the ability to become invisible when roaring. But don't worry, you can get rid of these little annoying buggers with some simple tricks, which include sticking a broomstick on your pillow, hanging iron horseshoes on your bedpost, placing your shoes against your bed with the toes pointing toward your door, placing a mirror on your chest, hanging steel crosses around the room. You can also bargain with the owl, asking it to come back in the morning for coffee. It will scurry away and return in the morning to claim its prize. Take this opportunity to cave its frontal lobe in with a solid oak plank. Problem solved. Back to morbid curiosity got the best of you, didn't it? Alright, well here's even more evil human experiments. Usually when you think of World War II, chemical weapons are not the first thing that comes to mind.
So in fact, we would be very much able to move straight into control of this point without trying to destroy everything around here.
In order to design effective protective equipment, one has to learn what they're dealing with. Enter the mustard gas experiments, secret tests conducted by the United States to gain more insight into the effects of mustard gas soldiers. Now you might be asking, what about all those soldiers killed during World War I? Well, you'd actually be surprised to learn that out of the estimated 17 million or so deaths attributed to the Great War, only about 90,000 were from chemical weapons, only a few thousand being directly from mustard gas. That's only about 1/100%. That's not really a conclusive sample size. In order to paint a clearer picture of what they were dealing with, over 60,000 soldiers were voluntold to participate in these trials, often with zero knowledge of what they were about to experience. In total, there were 3 experimental designs for troops to partake in. The first, and the easiest, was the patch test. Liquid mustard gas was applied directly to the test subject's skin in order to observe any immediate effects. The second was the field test, where soldiers were deployed on a simulated battlefield and enveloped in a mustard gas cloud to test various protective equipment prototypes. The last design was the chamber test. Equipped with only makeshift gas masks, soldiers were locked in small chambers where mustard gas was piped in order to test its incapacitating properties. One soldier, Sergeant Rollins Edwards, recalls his horrific experience when enduring a chamber test at just 21 years old in 1943.
And they had, it was just one little hut there. And they told us all to go in there, but don't put on your gas mask until you smell gas. And we've been in there, and I put it in the flesh. School was like, wow, outside the door, loose spot. We all standing up in there, and I put my gas mask on right there. But the gas mask then was just paper and charcoal. But they threw that gas into the top there. You know, those guys started screaming. Because it was such feel like there was a million red ants over there just all over me. Complete white.
Keep in mind that mustard gas itself, while it can be lethal, had a very low mortality rate in World War I, around 2 to 3%. Its main purpose was to incapacitate rather than kill. It was great at its job, but it was the British who decided to kick things up a notch with lewisite, a deadlier alternative to mustard gas. This was an arsenic-based compound capable of damaging your DNA on contact. Skin would blister, and your respiratory system would likely fail. But not only were these experiments aimed at observing the health effects on soldiers as a whole, but also how the chemicals may have affected different races. Black, Puerto Rican, Japanese, and white soldiers were tested separately, with the white soldiers being the control group, meaning that they were the baseline to compare to. If there was enough evidence to suggest that one group was more resistant than another, guess who's going to be sent on the front line? Of course, in the end, no such conclusive evidence was ever found, so good job with that. Any soldier resisting participation was threatened with dishonorable discharge and jail time for failure to obey commands. During these experiments, soldiers were subjected to agonizing pain and trauma, which resulted in permanent physical and psychological damage for the rest of their lives. These men were scarred with chemical burns on their skin, eyes, even in their lungs. Those who endured these experiments as well survived any future combat because, these soldiers were still expected to fight in the war, were unable to seek any medical attention once discharged from service. They were sworn to secrecy, lest they face legal backlash for disclosing information about a confidential operation. While you might be sitting there waving your finger at the United States, it wasn't just the wonderful freedom powerhouse who did this kind of stuff. The mustard gas experiments actually took place years after the good old redcoats did the same thing in Australia, England, Canada, and India, which is probably when the British developed their aversion to anything remotely spicy. Now here's a topic that'll probably get me canceled. Way back in the day in 1955, 2 twin baby boys slapped out of their mother. Bruce and Brian Reimer. As cute as they were, they had a bit of a problem. Both boys were born with phimosis, an odd medical condition that monetizable terms, meant that they had trouble peeing properly due to a non-retractable skin on their little fellas. That's not the worst. I mean, just a simple circumcision would pop those turtles right out of their shells, right? Probably yes. If you have a decent doctor. A description apparently not befitting of Bruce's doctor. The physician who performed this rather routine surgery decided to be a bit unconventional and cauterized the freshly cut skin rather than a traditional stitching. This deviation from standard procedure rendered Bruce's manhood completely non-functional at just 8 months old. Outraged, the robber parents refused to have Brian undergo the same treatment, so his jacket still had its hood. With Bruce's medically malpracticed member, Robber's parents eventually found one Dr. John Money, which sounds more like the prim and proper version of Johnny Cash, except Money would be performing a role in Hurt. Dr. John Money was a medical psychology professor at Johns Hopkins University. His research centered on theories of gender identity and gender roles. He would eventually pioneer the process of chemical castration, a drug treatment on sex offenders to completely eliminate their violent desires, which is pretty cool. What's not cool is his role in the life of Bruce Reimer. After the Reimer family got in contact with Dr. Money, they were advised to have Bruce's remaining male parts surgically removed and swap teams, undergoing gender reassignment and instead being raised girl. Bewildered, the parents agreed, and at just 2 years old, Bruce Reimer became Brenda Reimer. Although later in life, Bruce stated that he never really identified as female. But Dr. Money didn't stop there. He pushed further and tried to upsell just beyond the base model. Looks like little Brenda's gonna need some hormone treatment. And while you're at it, I can throw in a vagina as well. It'll look like a chewed up wad of gum, but I'll do the trick. We're just gonna take the hormone treatment. Thanks. No one ever wants the shit. But this is where things started to really take a turn. You see, Money had a theory. One that explored the influences of nature versus nurture as it pertains to gender.
Here we go, and we are indeed straight onto the shooting phase.
Into one of the most strange and disturbing experiments I've ever read about. So, thanks YouTube comment section. Appreciate that. And what I can only assume would be a way to further his research, both Brenda and Brian regularly visited Dr. Money for routine checkups to see how the change had impacted their relationship and well-being. At just 6 years old, Money began exposing the children to explicit adult content. Even worse, he reportedly forced the 2 children to reenact certain poses featured in these films and had, at least on one occasion, taken pictures of the children doing this. Both children had reported incidents of Dr. Money's temper when resisting such requests. They stated that although he was calm and well-mannered in the presence of their parents, he became violent and verbally abusive behind closed doors. When discussing the events years later, Brenda recalled one specific event where Dr. Money had yelled at him for refusing to undress when both children were forced to inspect each other. Years later, a now teenage Brenda was propositioned by Money to undergo a full transition surgery, but Brenda repeatedly, adamantly refused. After years of, let's not sugarcoat it, full-blown sexual abuse, Brenda hit a psychological breaking point. It was at this time that the Reimer parents broke the truth to Brenda that he was born as a boy, and immediately, Brenda abandoned life as a girl, took on the name David, and even underwent reconstructive surgeries to restore damage done to him. Dr. Money, however, fraudulently reported his work as a successful female gender development, using it as evidence to support future gender reassignment cases. But in 1997, David came forward with his story to discredit Dr. Money, speaking to the horrors of his upbringing and the mental toll it took on both him and his brother. David's testimony was published across several high-profile magazines, but as freeing as it was to tell a story, it wasn't enough to free him from his mental anguish. In 2004, David had taken his own life at age 38, just 2 years after his brother, Brian, had overdosed on antidepressants. Dr. Money had brushed off David's testimony as merely right-wing and anti-feminist propaganda. According to the Intersex Society of North America, however, many individuals within the intersex community had condemned Money for falsifying his report, as it had led to thousands of surgical procedures on infants as a matter of policy. Over the following years, Money would continue to have many of his theories debunked by his own social experiments. He never faced any consequences for his explicit actions with the Reimer twins or any other families that he had impacted with his practices. John Money ultimately cashed out of this moral coil in 2006 at the age of 85. As an added kick to the butcher dick, even though Brian never had the surgery to cure his phimosis, you know, that condition that kickstarted this whole thing, it eventually corrected itself with age. So it is likely that Bruce would have also outgrown this condition, sparing both brothers from their cruel fate. But hey, hindsight's 2020. It's not real.
So of course, here we go, firing our salvo launcher. They have cover, of course. So we're gonna roll our 2 attacks.
And just like any other disease, there had to be a cure, right? Well, that's what Dr. Oscar 11 claimed anyway. In 1967, the South African military gave first conscription of soldiers
Really?
to beef up the military. Initially,
So they're hitting on 2s. Strength 10. That means hitting on 4s.
Any enlisted soldiers found to be lying about being straight were severely punished.
As isolated.
In reality, there was a strong concern
Yeah, hitting on 3s.
would lie about their preferences in order to avoid being conscripted.
Wait, wow.
So how goes the conscription? Not good. Apparently everyone around here is gay.
Okay, what's the cover bonus?
Instead, the rules were changed to allow those identifying as homosexuals to be forced into military service. Now to get curious. So those individuals were sent to a secret military hospital to unwillingly partake in Dr. Levin's many cures. This is where the Aversion Project...
And then reprint Lynchpin, engage in all fronts, secure no man's land, marked for death and established locus.
Were strapped into chairs and forced to watch many explicit adult films of the heathen empire. Nice. These patients sustained aggressive electrical shocks while viewing the film, up to 120 volts and about 800 milliamps, which is super painful and potentially lethal. The theory was that if repeatedly
Engage.
shocked, the brain would eventually rewire itself to anticipate pain when thinking of the naughty do thoughts. You know, a Clockwork Orange style. The tests continued, but Levin failed to get any of the results that he had anticipated. In response, he upped the ante by continuing the aggressive shock therapy in conjunction with deep-throating depressant drugs to make the victim's brain more susceptible to change. Despite this outright torture, the desired effects were never achieved, and no cure had occurred. Although it does have to be said that some soldiers simply faked that they were cured in order to escape these torturous experiments. As a last-ditch effort to stop any of these so-called unnatural desires from
So yeah, +1 to the save. So
these soldiers chemically castrated against their will before being released from
strength 10, that means
took a huge cycle
hitting on
many
3s, hitting on 2s. And they hit.
came up with one more attempt at a cure. First, gender reassignment. You see, if you like dudes and you're a dude, that's just silly. But if you're not a girl and you still like dudes, then it's a-okay. Several soldiers were forced to undergo the surgery. Not many survived. Those who did suffered extreme medical issues for the rest of their lives. Survivors were given new identities and forbidden from contacting anyone from their old life. But the horror didn't stop there. In order to keep his failed experiment out of the public light, Dr. Levin overcalled the construction of a grief skull, a forced labor camp where any of the subjects that were considered incurable would reside. It wasn't until 1975, 7 years after
Saving on 5s.
that the nightmare finally ended after Dr. Levin received a promotion. He left
Saving
the
on
military
4s.
to become the director of mental health for the South African Department of Health Services.
And saves both.
Full justice fairly served. Apartheid ended in 19...
Didn't even need cover, got 2 5s. Does not bode very well. Does not bodacious.
But he's ultimately released just 18 months later on parole. And as of this video, he is 86 years old and still alive today as a free man. In the midst of the Cold War, rumors began to spread across the continents of Soviet brainwashing.
Ah, yes.
The war released after the Korean War were witness to the shadows of the men they once were, often regurgitating communist ideals to which they were apparently subjected to repeatedly during a capture. Some other men outright refused to return to American soil and fully defected to the USSR. But these obvious tells of psychological manipulation struck fear into the vacuous heart of the American government. The CIA director at the time, Allen Dulles, condemned such actions, calling out the communist brainwashing as abhorrent and nefarious. He went on to state how such war tactics were beneath American values and even human
We
rights.
definitely risk you lose a couple of units there, but I think gold ended up being a very good position.
States' very own mind control experimentation program. Sure, Dulles may have said that mind control is un-American, but losing is even un-American.
An Americaner.
MK Ultra was to develop ways to control human behavior and ultimately develop a truth serum, be it a physical substance or a specific technique. This would be especially helpful with things like espionage or interrogating enemy prisoners of war. Hey, it's only evil if the enemy does. MK Ultra was composed of several different methods for perfecting the art of psychological manipulation. These included hypnosis, electroshock therapy, and administering experimental drugs, the most pervasive of which being the force administration of LSD. Now, these tactics were not limited to just prisoners of war. Those are way too scarce of numbers. In order to get more promising and conclusive data, you need a larger population. Well, that's nothing a few prisons, psych wards, and the U.S. Army can't supply. Wait, what? The head honcho of MK Ultra was Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, one of the CIA's top biochemists. Under his guidance and generous funding from the CIA, experiments began across North America in over 30 institutions and universities, including Columbia University and Stanford University. Experiments were later expanded to Canada too, but let's start domestic. MK Ultra was
We're gonna leave it right there.
Candidate for this mythical truth serum was tested. Lysergic acid diethylamine, LSD, a powerful synthetic hallucinogen developed in 1938 in Switzerland. I originally wanted to develop a new respiratory stimulant, and I did. But now I can also taste colors. Sounds pretty good. Tons of this stuff was purchased by the CIA for use in MK Ultra, roughly $4.2 million worth in today's money. In true evil experiment fashion, test subjects were never given explicit knowledge of what they were about to experience, only that they would be participating in some sort of test. These subjects were either convicted criminals or mentally ill patients who either had no choice in participation or the ability to comprehend what they were about to go through. Former organized crime boss guy Whitey Bulger was one such patient, and he wrote about his experience as a government lab rat in 1997. He recalled being injected with what he later found out to be LSD. Here's an excerpt from his writings. 8 convicts in a panic and paranoid state. Total loss of appetite. Hallucinating.
I'm being so dumb.
Hours of paranoia, feeling nightmare. We experienced horrible periods of living nightmares and even blood coming out of the walls. Guys turning into skeletons. I saw a camera change into the head of a dog. Felt like I was going insane. Yeah, it was really rough stuff. And maybe some people in the audience can attest to some experience like this.
Music to play Warhammer.
Something like you've gone through. You little deviants, you. Why wait?
So I could not even have shot there. It was a waste of time. But it is in fact the end of my first turn. We are wholly within 3 of the table quarters. And we control 2 objectives in no man's land, so that's a decent haul right there. We're gonna gain a couple more points, and it's now gold time to shine. We have marked for death and establish locus. And here we go. So 12 inches in millimeters is going to be 250, 300. So we are actually very able to move right here. But we'll of course opt to move to the center of the battlefield, as we are very right to do so. If there's a piece of cover between me and the enemy, but he's not within that piece of cover, he does not get cover, right? I can shoot over it. So we're going to be able to move 6 inches from right here, because that's where we started. Right here, of course, right in the middle. 6 inches will be 300 millimeters. So will be very well here within an angle where we are controlling that objective, and we are able to get a great line of sight. I know this is not a regulatory table. We are wholly within cover. He's not. I think there's only gonna be one choice here. Marble will in fact immediately call fire overwatch. How's everybody doing out there? Thank you for joining. We're playing Warhammer. Yes, I don't see why not. They do get, of course, the benefit of cover. So there it is, marble already used. Hitting on 2s. And twin link, we reroll wound rolls. They hit. Strength 10. Hitting on 2s. Wounding on 2s and reroll. Two hits. Saving on 4s. One is saved. The other is not. So we roll a d6 plus 1. And that's 3 damage. So that did not do very much. No, it was only hitting on 6. What am I doing? Why am I so dumb? I tried. I don't remember if I got any 6s. So I'm just gonna redo it. So we can actually do it properly. It's only fair because it's not like doesn't matter. No 6s. Do I pay I'm not gonna pay to reroll. So that's the end of the golds. Moving phase. So what we're gonna do, of course, is rapid ingress. Let us go calculate here. So as we saw, Rennie actually didn't move that much because they only want it to be around the 3 inches away. So I think the actually other unit is here, so you have to be 9 inches away from here. 9 inches is 425. No, 9 inches is obviously so. So it's 125 millimeters. So we are actually able to deploy directly onto here. So that of course means Marble has spent its CP. We are have to be 9 inches away. It would normally be able to appear in this battle. Hello, Sorcerer, great name. Thanks so much for checking out the stream. Appreciate you. Welcome to Warhammer. How are you doing today? Drop us a message, drop us a follow, come hang out, come play. I know this is not a regulation table, but we do take our measures from a regulation graphic. Maybe I could even put it on the screen for you guys to see. No, I think it would be hella confusing. You're gone anyway. I did go live, like, there used to be people joining from YouTube. Why not anymore anyone joining from YouTube? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Forever alone. What if 2 units are inside these covers? Let's say, so one is inside a building and the other one is behind it, inside of one of those deployment area blue areas. What then? It's linchpin. Home must hold. Thanks so much everybody for joining the stream. I really appreciate. Come hang out, come say hello. Drop us a message. Is this not like focusing properly? I think that helped. It was completely out of focus. Anywho's. So we rapid ingress at the end of the movement. Our friend is of course holding the home, which showing he has less reason to do so. Which is interesting in itself. We are going of course to the shooting phase. And we are gonna mag dump. Let us go check it out again. So our target does not have any kind of cover. We're just gonna check our rules once more to make sure that we cover all contingencies. When this unit advanced had 6 inches to its move characteristics. Yes, we did that. That's how we got in this situation. Perhaps. Don't think it's gonna be that easy. But so again, we have Trajan Valorous. Shooting his Eagle's Scream. 2 attacks, hitting on 2s. And we are re-rolling wounds of 1. You have +1 to wound, +1 to hit, +1 to wound. That's a 4 and that's a 1. Okay. 1 hit. We're not gonna go desperation mode. Strength 5. Wounding on 4s. Rerolling wounds. Saving on 4s. No, it didn't save. And that's 3 damage. That does not bode well at all. It was a bold move that did not come out. So down to 2 wounds. So took 3 damage of the 5 wounds. They're down to 2 wounds. Now we are shooting and tooting. It is, of course, 4 sentinel blades. With 2 attack each. Rerolling wounds of 1. Of course, hitting on 2s, they all hit. Strength 4, hitting on 4s. Wounding on 4s, re-rolling wounds of 1. We are in range of the objective, so we are actually re-rolling all the wounds. So that's 6. Six wounds. Saving on saving on 2s. And it was all saved. No, not saving on 2s. Stop. Saving on 3s. Still was all saved. It's AP -1. So we're gonna do once per battle. After this unit shoots, it can shoot again. We're using our once per battle. Eagle Scream. Hitting on 2s. Strength 5. Hitting on 4s. Wounding on 4s. And it fails. We actually can re-roll the wound. Oh my god. And it hits. This has AP -2. Saving on 4s. And it's a 3. That means one of them is dead. Thanks for playing. One bike just blew up. So, guards, Sentinel Blade, hitting on 2s, 2 attacks, 4 models, that's 8 dice, hitting on 2s. Strength 4. Wounding on 5s. Re-rolling wounds. That's 4 wounds. Saving on 3s. And that is 2 hits going in, damage 2. That's 4 wounds. So he's down to 1 wound. He survives. But does he? Down to 1 wound. and did not really get to do anything, as we are not done yet. Didn't want to do this. But we're firing the salvo launcher from our captain. So hitting on 2s, strength 10. That means wounding on 5s. Wounding on strength 10 means wounding on 2s and re-roll wound roll. Saving on 5s. Didn't save, so that's a d6 plus 1. He's dead. He's 100% grade A dead. And that's just the way the math rolls. Dun, 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 dun.